Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. Come on, you, get up there. That's it. I'm really pleased to see that the bluebells that we planted as little bulbs last September have largely flowered. Now, they're delicate at the moment, but they do already cast this lovely blue shimmer over this piece of the garden, and that will spread naturally by seed. You can make your own little bluebell wood if you've got a few trees. The cowslips are spread entirely by seed from about 50 yards away. There's some cow parsley coming through. It's got all that magic of spring. Now, you haven't been to Longmeadow for 3 weeks, so I'm going to give you a little tour to show you how spring has transformed it, and then later on I'll be planting those bee-friendly plants that I bought in Malden. This week, Juliet Sargenan visits a garden in South London that's been created specifically to develop physical and mental well-being.
I like using my hands and feeling, the earth.
There is something really therapeutic about it, isn't there?
And over the next few weeks, Jo will be learning to love the hanging basket. And this week starts with the most traditional kind.
I'm on a mission to find out the secrets behind these riots of colour and how I can bring them into my world of contemporary garden design.
The cottage garden has really come into its own. And this year, I planted tulips chosen for their height. These are triumph varieties. So you've got Camargue, this flushed with pink. You've got Roi de Midi, the buttery yellow, rising up from the forget-me-nots. Now, forget-me-nots will seed themselves everywhere, but you can control that by lifting plants after they've flowered and then replanting where you want them, spaced about a foot or so apart. They very quickly spread. And if you've got the boundaries and containment of a hedge, that stops them spreading too far and makes them nice and upright. Then through that, the tulips can rise up as these lovely, pastel-y, almost ice cream flowers. And the whole thing is shamelessly frothy, light and fun. The daffodils in the long walk are still flowering up to a point, although increasingly they need deadheading almost on an hourly basis. But through them have come the ballerina tulips and the wallflowers. And the result is a really fiery and, I have to say, very fragrant mix. And of course, the whole point of this is to provide a transition from the pastel colours of the cottage garden to the intensity of the jewel garden. The jewel garden, with its strict palette of jewel colours, is quite slow to get going. It doesn't kick in till the first tulips arrive at the end of April. But then it all starts to happen very fast. And from now through to October, everything about this piece of the garden is about colour. And the colours are arriving thick and fast. Now, at this time of year, they're dominated by a kind of fresh energy that's best seen in the golden hops and in the euphorbias. That's matched by the alliums, which are just beginning to open, purple sensation. But above all, it's about keeping that palette of jewel-like colours growing and firing on all cylinders from now right through into autumn. Nothing can be more different to the jewel garden than the writing garden, which is fundamentally white, except at this time of year, because the apple blossom's out, and that means that it's touched with pink. And the dominant note comes from cow parsley. I wanted to make a garden that captured the essence of cow parsley at this time of year. And in fact, I've got quite a few plants have been growing from seed that are umbellifers like cow parsley, and long after that's disappeared, will keep providing these umbels of white froth. Now this is Ami visnaga, and the umbels are rather more rounded rather than plate-like, and are just touched with green. So very easy to sow. I actually sowed these in February. Nice little plants like that. But of course, if you haven't sown any from seed, it's too late to do so now, but you can buy plugs online. And I'll just pop them randomly, as many, maybe 20, 30, 40 throughout this area, so that in a couple of months' time, those will rise up through and give this floating cloud of white flower. The thing about growing plants at this time of year is that the whole process, from planting out to enjoying them flowering, makes you feel so much better. When I've written at great length about it's helped me with depression, simply through the process of looking after plants and gardening. And we went to Bethlehem Hospital in Beckenham in southeast London, where they are doing exactly that work.
My name is Juliet Sargenan. I now work as a garden designer, but in my former life, I was a hospital doctor. In my bones, I know that gardening is good for our health. And today, I'm visiting a place that proves it by actively incorporating it into treatment. This is Bethlehem Royal Hospital, the oldest psychiatric hospital in the world. For over 700 years, at various sites, it's been involved in the treatment of people with mental illness. Patients come here mostly for residential care, and they can stay from a few weeks to even a few years. One of the most innovative treatments they offer is gardening therapy. I'm meeting the head of occupational therapy, Peter O'Hare, to find out exactly what it involves.
We have a range of gardens here on site. We have a courtyard garden, a walled kitchen garden where we grow mostly vegetables, and we have restored the orchards recently as well. So this provides us with a wide range of potential activities which we can adapt for therapeutic purposes.
So what sort of conditions might people have?
Here we have people with schizophrenia, depression, anxiety disorders, eating disorders. We have a mother and baby unit. We have children and adolescents.
With something like depression, how does the gardening actually help?
A lot of it is to do with the sensory experience. When you're out there in nature, just like here, you can see the bluebells and the smell of them, the touch. It does a lot to stimulate. Been out in the sun as well. That can all have an impact on people's mood. So getting off the ward and getting out there can really, really help.
I can imagine that if you have a condition like anxiety disorder, it could be quite a challenge working in a muddy kitchen garden.
Mm-hmm. Actually, anxiety is a good example. Because people often come with severe contamination fears, if they have OCD, so actually, yes, it's really difficult to think of getting your hands dirty, but that's precisely what some of them have to do. But doing it in a very gradual way, seeing that it isn't going to actually kill them, which is often a fear they may have, or they're not going to contaminate somebody else, which is another fear people may have. So they work through those in therapy, but it's only because they can actually do it in the garden that it is actually effective. It's the two together that really work.
Gardening therapy might seem new, but hospitals and their gardens have a long history. In the past, they were used to grow medicinal plants and food for patients. Today, here at Bethlehem, patients produce food for themselves and in turn help in their own recovery. And there's real evidence that this treatment works. In Norway, they looked at people with depression and found that after just 12 weeks of gardening therapy, they had a significant improvement in their mood. Hi, Jack.
Hi.
I can help.
Thank you.
Jack is new to Bethlehem and to gardening.
I like using my hands and feeling Mother Earth. And
There is something really, really therapeutic about it, isn't there?
well, that's what I've noticed. For me, it's not... What's therapeutic is being outside in the sunlight, but it's also the social interaction and the other people you meet while you're here. You're not here on your own. So you can ask questions, gain knowledge, as well, and chat, you know, about anything. It'll take your mind off, maybe if you've got any worries. It's a form of distraction, yeah.
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 But a very positive form of distraction.
Leon's been here for a few months, and gardening therapy is making a difference.
I'm not that confident joining groups at all. I do get a bit shy, to be honest. It helps me build up my confidence outside in the community.
And do you find it relaxing to be here in the garden?
It helps you relax, but when you go back, you always got a smile on your face, and people like that.
So do you think you're going to carry on gardening after you leave Bethlehem?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to find a communal place where they do activities and stuff like that. So hopefully, I do gardening in another garden.
Yes.
And I can show them what I've been doing at Bethlehem. I love it. It's just lovely weather and lovely to do a bit of gardening, really.
Nothing better?
No.
Seeing the work that's going on here at Bethlehem confirms everything I believe to be great about gardening. It's good for mental well-being, it's good for physical well-being, and it's something, if at all possible, we should all be doing more of.
What's your thing best about gardening?
Gosh, there's so many things I love about gardening. I think probably my favourite thing is when I discover a new plant that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And I learn how to grow it.
Exactly. I agree with you there.
Juliet will be joining me at Chelsea next week, where I'll be learning more about her interest in gardening as therapy. Go on. Good boy. Now, I've created an area here at Longmeadow to maximise wildlife. But I did say, when I set out to make this, that I wanted to make it a garden that would be beautiful. And that is a key part of it. And this area around the back is now ready for planting with bee-friendly plants. In other words, plants that are designed to attract as many bees as possible. And at Malvern last week, I went shopping and bought a few plants just to get it going. The first is this pretty little geum. And it's called Bellbank. And it's got a slightly pinky apricot flower. And it fulfills one of the first really important things if you want to attract bees, which is to have open flowers, easy for the bee to get to. So I'm going to plant this at the edge. So we're starting to create a border. This is not wild gardening. This is going to look a really nice border. Before I plant, I just want to position the other plants around them. I've got a scabious. This is Scabiosa pink mist. And what's beautiful about this plant is if you deadhead it, it will flower from now right through summer. And you can see perfect for bees to land on and get the nectar and the pollen. And that's the other thing you need to look for, is plants that are rich in nectar and pollen. The other plant I bought at Malvern is this glorious thistle. And thistles are good for insects of all kinds. It's called Cirsium rivulari atropurpureum. It's a glorious flower. Unfortunately, it is quite short-lived, so you have to live with that. It will perform superbly for about 3 years, and then it will disappear. Now, I'm standing on boards because I have prepared this very thoroughly. Just because it's a wildlife garden, it doesn't mean to say that you can plant in amongst the weeds. If you're making a border, same rules apply. Weed it thoroughly, dig it thoroughly, and that, apart from anything else, makes planting a lot easier. Now, one of the reasons for planting bee-friendly plants is that there is a real worry that we have a shortage of bees, and that obviously has great implications for pollination. And Friends of the Earth are trying to find out how many bees we've actually got. And you can get an app which helps you identify them, and with the counting process, If you go to our website, you'll get all the details of how to get that app and how to use it, as well as a really useful list of bee-friendly plants. And of course, it's not just this time of year it matters. The key thing is to have a succession of plants from February for the first bumblebees through to September, October, and you'll be surprised what those plants might be. There's a wide choice. At certain times of year, seemingly unlikely plants, like ivy, for example, are really important for bees. It doesn't always have to be flowers in a border. See, that's incredible. You plant a geum, and literally within a minute, there are bees. As well as encouraging bees by planting for them, I've gone a step further. I've got a simple beehive. It's called a top bar hive, and is really just an elementary box to encourage the bees in. Now, if I take the lid off here for a minute, you'll see what looks like a series of bars across the top. And if you lift one off, you can see it's simply that. You rub beeswax on here, and that attracts the bees in. There's a little door down there through which they enter. And they make their honeycombs attached to these bars, so they hang down like that. And in time, they can fill the whole hive with a whole row of them. And if you want to, you simply lift them out and take the honey from it. But actually, you don't even need to do that. You can just regard it as a home, living space for wild bees. Just set it up and leave it. And you can contact your local bee association and they will provide you with a swarm, and you can learn how to beekeep and make honey. Either way, you're going to do an awful lot to help the bee population. And the beauty of this is you don't need an orchard to place it in. You don't need to be in the countryside. This works just as well in a small suburban or urban garden, or even a roof garden, as it does in the countryside. Now, for something very different indeed. Joe is in search of the perfect hanging basket.
As a garden designer, my style is quite contemporary. I like clean lines and slick and simple planting. So for me, hanging baskets are a bit of a no-no. They're big, they're brash, they're colourful, and dare I say it, a little bit dated. Yet I know they're incredibly popular, and they adorn millions of homes and workplaces up and down the country.
As a nation, during the summer months, we go crazy for them. From back gardens and city balconies to street corners and pub fronts, they're everywhere. So what am I missing? Am I just being a design snob?
I'm on a mission to find out the secrets behind these riots of colour and how I can bring them into my world of contemporary garden design. It's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to be convinced.
To kick off my voyage of discovery, where better to head than a commercial grower? Miles Watson-Smith is an expert in traditional hanging basket design.
How many hanging baskets do you make up every year?
Well, in this block, there's about 4,000, but we actually grow over 11,000 every summer.
11,000?
Yeah.
So where do they all end up?
Well, these ones are for the City of Westminster, so these are going on to Piccadilly, Trafalgar Square, even Downing Street. But remember, it's early in the season. They're only just showing a little bit of colour now,
Yeah, but
Joe.
soon it's going to just be masses of colour.
It'll be huge, yeah.
So, Miles, what do people want from a hanging basket?
They want floral impact, bright, blousy colours all mixed together. They want the hanging basket to shout and say, I'm here! You know what I mean? It's just...
It's not subtle, then?
No, there's nothing subtle about a hanging basket. It's got to have mixed colours, all clashing with each other, really providing that impact.
So it's like a mini garden. You're trying to get lots of different colours and lots of different plants in a hanging basket.
Oh, absolutely. The more the merrier, Joe. There's going to be a party in there.
A party in a basket?
Yes!
It's a party in a basket. Of course it is. That's what they're about.
Miles clearly has a real passion for these pockets full of colour, and his healthy order book proves he's not alone. With 11,000 baskets to get finished in the next few weeks, if I help him out, can he persuade me of the virtues of hanging baskets?
So it's just a simple wire basket. What's the liner we put in?
Right, it's a type of felt which has got a thin plastic backing onto it, and then we've lined it as well with a rather heavy-duty piece of polythene that has got holes drilled in it. The holes are about 5 centimetres up from the bottom of the basket, creating a reservoir of water. And, Joe, remember that try and get a basket that's as big as possible. These are 55-centimetre baskets. They're absolutely huge. That means you've got that volume of moisture that'll keep it wet.
Plant-wise, what are we putting in then? Ah!
Here we are. We're going to start off with the Bidens.
OK.
Central Bidens.
Central Bidens right in the middle?
Right in the middle.
OK.
That's going to grow really long and come through everything else. We've got some ivy leaf geranium.
So what compost have you got in here, then?
It has got a bit of peat in it. We've also got perlite, and in addition, we've got water-retaining granules.
And what else have we got?
Both the base fertiliser and a slow-release fertiliser in there, just to leach that feed out through the season.
What did you put in there, then?
So
I've got to keep up here.
You're keeping up. That's the Saphinia, which is a white flower with this lovely blue, delicate vein that comes through the trumpet-shaped flower. A yellow begonia illumination.
Yeah, of course we are. Yellow
All right.
begonia. It just goes beautifully with the pink and the red, doesn't it?
And another pink illumination. So, Joe, another thing about the plant selection is that we choose self-cleaning plants where the wind naturally blows the dead heads off and they just continue generating new flowers through the season.
So, in total, we are putting in about 10 or 11 plants.
In 2 weeks, they'll double in size.
Now, some people punch holes in the side of the liner and plant up the size to try and envelop it in flowers.
Yeah, absolutely unnecessary.
OK.
This is going to be a mass of flowers that's going to trail over. In a few weeks' time, you won't see the liner or the basket.
It'll just be draped in plants?
It's going to be covered.
So about ongoing maintenance,
Yes.
is it just watering or do you feed it throughout the season?
Feed and feed and feed. Yes, you cannot overfeed these things because, remember, a lot of it all leaches through. So feed it and water it as much as you possibly can. With a big basket like this, once every 4 days, should be plenty.
What's going to happen to my hanging basket?
Right.
Where's it going to end up?
We put it on the streets of London.
When it goes out, I want to know exactly where it is.
We're gonna
so
have
that
to
I can
tag it.
walk past it and like I say, I planted that. Most of these hanging baskets will adorn urban spaces, so those shots of colour will be seen by people who don't even have a garden at all. Now, that's a serious plus point, especially for a hanging basket sceptic like me.
But I still need more convincing. So next time I'll be exploring an edgier side of hanging baskets and trying out a more radical approach in my mission to embrace these miniature gardens of the sky.
You know, I've never had a hanging basket here at Longmeadow, but I'm going to make 1 or 2 over the course of the next few weeks. This time of year has long been known as the hungry gap, and that's because there's surprisingly little to eat in the vegetable garden. The winter crops are pretty much all over, and yet the summer crops haven't really kicked in. However, things are happening. So, for example, this bed looks empty, but I had some spare seed potatoes, and I popped them in there a week ago. So if you've got seed potatoes, or you can get some, it's not too late to plant them. This is Cavolo Nero, the black Tuscan kale. Too early to pick it yet, but I will be able to pick it in maybe 3-4 weeks' time, and that will go on growing and being harvested right through next winter. I've grown rocket in amongst the elephant garlic, but you can see that it's gone to seed. And what that means is that the leaves get fewer and far between. They're still perfectly good. Nice and peppery. I've got some little gem coming through. The early Belle de Fontenay potatoes got frosted, but they've survived. It'll set them back about a week, no more. However, the Swiss chard that I sowed, complete disaster. Now, I put that down to the fact that it was very dry after I sowed them. It's a write-off. I'll just hoe these out and start again. Probably wasted a fiver's worth of seed, which is a shame, but not the worst thing that can happen in the garden. However, the rhubarb is just triumphant. Broad beans have been slow to get going, but they're coming through. And you can see the peas, a real difference between the ones that I sowed in plugs under cover and raised and planted out, and the ones I've sowed directly, which have only just started to appear. I don't think that matters. It gives succession. Perhaps it's a little bit too early to harvest much, but just in a week or two, when the days warm up, everything is just going to go whoosh. I don't know if you can hear the chattering in the sky. It's suddenly full of house martins, and I love them because they're so busy, hard at work, catching insects, riding the wind. Well, I've been busy while you've been away. There's always work to do at this time of year, and here are some things that you can do in your garden this weekend.
I like to grow tulips in handsome terracotta pots, but you have to leave them to die back after they finish flowering, and this ties the pot up. So deadhead the tulips, lift them from the terracotta, and then put them into a plastic pot where they can slowly die back as next year's bulb develops properly. Wash the terracotta pot, and you have it to reuse for something else. If you've sown your own sweet peas or bought some seedlings, now is the time to plant them into the garden. They will need something to climb up. I like to use wigwams, but netting will do, or a fence, anything that they can be tied to. Although they'll form tendrils and attach themselves after about 4 or 5 weeks' growth. They relish rich soil, so add plenty of compost, and when you've planted them, water them in well and keep them well watered. If you're growing outdoor tomatoes, or taking part in our blight-free experiment, it's too early to plant them outside unless you live in the far south, because the nights are too cold. However, they should be hardened off now. So take them out of the greenhouse, check through them, and pinch out any side shoots. Although Losetto, which is one of our varieties, is a bush type, and that shouldn't be pinched out. Then place them somewhere where they can gradually be exposed to outdoor life, and we'll plant them out in a few weeks' time.
I do absolutely love this time of year. Of course, you can get some bad weather still. And just a week or so back, the magnolia that I planted got blasted by frost, and all the flowers and all the foliage immediately blackened. If that's happened to your magnolia, don't worry. The plant will be fine. There'll be fresh growth, and that will come back through. And there's so much else around it that it hardly matters. And just for the next week or two, spring is still holding strong. Now, that's it for this week. We shan't be back here next week because it's Chelsea Flower Show. And I'll be there along with Joe and Rachel and Carol. And then we'll be back here at Longmeadow in a fortnight's time. So until then, bye-bye. Come on, this way. It's night.